Hey, welcome back to Tuesday Coffee Break. I'm your host, Michael Coffey, and this is week 4 of a 5-week series. The series is called Setting an Example, and today's topic is the power and impact of trust. Recently, I was out to dinner, and the folks that we were out to dinner with, one was a brand new person I was meeting for the first time. And so we were kind of doing all the general introduction stuff. What do you do for a living? So on and so forth. And they were asking me about what I do. And I shared that I'm an executive coach and a consultant and a trainer. And so as dinner went on and we talked about our work with one another, they asked me a great question. And the question that was asked was, what are the types of things that come up most often in coaching? And as I was thinking about how to answer that question, really what came up is this idea of trust. Over the almost 17, 20 years that I've been coaching, this topic probably comes up more than any other topic. Now, as I coach executives and organizations and teams, trust is a vital component. And you can think about your own life, your own experience. And I would say that trust plays a large part in whether or not a project goes well or a project goes south. And so what I wanted to share with you a little bit is just a tiny snippet of this power and impact of trust in this topic here. So today, most of the focus is going to be on us individually as leaders and what we can do to establish trust, which will lead to power and impact. Now, there's other elements here, and so if you want to hear about the other elements, we have a 2-page document that I put together that I would love to make available for you. All you have to do is leave a comment or reach out to us through this post, and we'll be happy to share that document with you. Let me get into the details of it. One of the best chapters I've ever read on trust, it comes from a book titled Understanding Leadership, and there's many, many good books out there, but this particular quote from the author Tom Marshall really resonated with me. He says, "Of all the elements of relationships, both at work and at home, the one that is most crucial for leadership is trust." He goes on to say, "Trust is vital for building a healthy, productive, and effective organization and team, and it must not be assumed. Every leader can increase their effectiveness and productivity by learning how to establish, grow, extend, and restore trust." I often look at it this way. When I was growing up as a little kid in New York City, we would go to the playground and we had seesaws, which were basically 2x8 planks of wood on a pivot point. And the most fun was not to get onto it with someone else, but to really walk across it and stand in the center and balance this really long board just by my small stature as a child. And the reason I think about that when I think about trust is because when you got up there and you got that balance going on that seesaw, you never assumed you were going to stay balanced. You had to really work at staying balanced. And I think that's part of our experience with trust. We can't assume that trust is established once and set forever. So let me talk a little bit more about this idea of establishing trust. And I'll start with a question. And here's my question. As leaders, ask yourself this. In what are your people placing their trust? I mean, when they say they're trusting you, or when you're asking for their trust, what are the characteristics or the qualities of trust that you're asking for or they're asking for? So I'm going to give you 4 that I think are pretty foundational. And this comes, again, from the work of Tom Marshall, because I felt like he really hit the nail on the head with this. So first thing is, when people are trusting you, they're learning to trust your judgment. They're following you and trusting you if they believe that you're reliable and that your judgment is reliable, that you sort of can move through life and make good decisions, and that you've had good judgment as you experience obstacles and challenges and you're having to solve for problems along the way. So number 1 is people are looking to build trust in our judgment as leaders. The second thing is, what about our resourcefulness? Oftentimes people are trusting as leaders our resourcefulness. Are we willing to really follow through Are we gonna be resourceful in the tough times, not just the easy times? Are we proving that people can trust us when we're hitting obstacles and challenges along the way? Will we do that in a way that doesn't blame others, but we take full responsibility, or what I like to call radical responsibility? And if we do so, then people learn to trust our resourcefulness. So they're trusting our judgment, they're trusting our resourcefulness. Number 3, they're trusting our perseverance. Are we going to see it all the way through, essentially? Are we going to go through the obstacles, through the challenges that we face? Now, here's an interesting thing when we think about this in regard to trust. I don't want you to think about going through a person, but really solving for the problem. Again, with my clients, a lot of times I'll say to them, hey, when you're solving for that problem and things are becoming challenging with the others in the room, I want you to think about it rather than facing off from opposite sides of the conference room table. What if you imagined all sitting on the same side of the conference room table and you're facing the problem together rather than facing off? Now, if we get on the same side of it and we start facing the problem together, that allows us to persevere, that allows us to build and show resourcefulness, and also it allows our judgment to stay intact. The fourth thing, oftentimes, that people are learning to trust in us is our integrity. Now, I'm not talking about the integrity in the sense of lie, cheat, and steal. Let's assume all of you that are listening to this would prefer or don't, or actually, let me say it a little differently. Imagine all of you here. I'm assuming that you don't lie, cheat, and steal. So when I'm talking about integrity, I'm really talking about that character formation. In other words, that people, when they see you, whether it's here, there, or anywhere, you're the same person. You show up the same way. Your character is firm. That's what they're learning to trust in. So it's sort of like this. If no one were listening, or if you thought no one were listening, and you were talking to another person and you didn't think anyone else was around, if someone did catch what you were saying, are you going to show up in a way that's full of character? So this is another piece, that we're honest about our mistakes, that we take responsibility, again, radical responsibility. And these are all the elements that people are looking at when they're deciding whether they're going to trust us or not trust us. And they're also the elements that help us deeply establish trust and can become where we can become really trusted leaders or trusted advisors. So I have a couple of questions for you, as I usually do. First question is this: what can you do to grow in sound judgment, resourcefulness, perseverance, and integrity? I mean, I'm talking about what are some really practical things you can do to grow in those 4 areas. Now, the second question is a little more outward facing. The question is this: what will you intentionally, or how, let me say it differently, how will you intentionally invest in others and set an example in establishing and building trust with them? Again, if you want to hear more about trust, if you'd like to read a little bit more, please leave a comment. And we would be happy to get this 2-page paper into your hand that I wrote. Setting an example. Week 1, setting an example with the impact of our words. Week 2 was setting an example with the impact of our behavior. Last week was setting an example with the impact on care. And this week is setting an example with the power and impact of trust. If this content is helpful for you, we would love you to like it, follow it, share it. Let us know how we're doing. We would love to hear feedback from you as well. I'm Michael Coffey. We're Cultivate Group. You are fantastic. Until next time, be well, lead well, and do well. See you next week at Coffee Break.